If you're looking for help with writing a memoir or essay collection, this video is all about my professional writing program, the Spark Your Story Intensive. I'm Nicole Breit, an award-winning essayist and writing coach, and today I want to walk you through a program I specifically designed to meet the unique needs of writers whose ultimate goal is to finish their book and get it published. So I can't wait to just dive right in and get started with my presentation. All right, so today we are talking about Spark Your Story Intensive program information. We are going to go over everything you need to know about this one-of-a-kind program for writers of memoir and creative nonfiction. If we haven't officially met yet, or you're new to my channel, I'm Nicole Breit. I mentioned that I'm an award-winning essayist and poet. I teach writers who are ready to make significant progress on their goal of sharing their book with the world. And I've created a number of online programs, including the Spark Your Story Intensive, the 12-week program we're talking about today for writers who are working on a manuscript project. So let's just start by seeing if this sounds at all like you, if any of these statements sound familiar. When you think about your book project, you feel lost in the woods and afraid that even if you finish your book, it may never get published. You feel called to finally tell your story, but you are always aware that the clock is ticking and it feels like time is running out. You want the support of an experienced mentor so you can stop wasting time, write your best work, and share it with the world. Writer, if that sounds like you are definitely in the right place. Our entire purpose in offering this program is to help writers like you get your stories on the page and out into the world. So let's start now by asking how it would feel to learn the many possibilities of story form and structure so you feel empowered by new ways to shape your memories into memoir. And how would it feel to you to work one-on-one with an experienced coach who can guide you as you do your work so that you can finally get your work published? This is what the Spark Your Story Intensive is all about. It was designed by me and it's delivered by multi-award winning author Rowan McCandless. We open enrollment twice a year. So if you're watching this video outside of an enrollment period, not to worry, we do have a wait list and I'm going to talk to you about how you can get your name on that wait list if you are interested in applying for a future enrollment period. I'd really like to talk about our unique approach because what we're doing in the intensive is really different than a lot of other writing programs out there. I've done some market research and I haven't been able to find anything quite like what we offer in the Spark Your Story Intensive. And I'll break down a little bit about what makes the intensive special. So the Spark Your Story Intensive really honors the deep work of writing personal narrative. We understand that this is really vulnerable, deep work. So we're really interested in nurturing a safe space for creativity, and we're committed to treating your work in progress with the utmost respect. That is the most important thing to us because we want you to be able to feel supported, your growth supported, and for you to be able to craft your best work with the time that you spend in the program. The Spark Your Story Intensive is different because we support what I call a mosaic approach to writing a book. If you are expecting to come into a program, a professional program where you're going to, break down your big idea into an outline and sort of plot things out and then sort of write towards an arc or an outcome for your story, that isn't really how it works with us. We're really focused on breaking a big story down into small pieces and writing whole stories that in and of itself are worthy of publication, worthy of sharing. So each week in the program, you're going to produce a short work of creative nonfiction towards the bigger goal of creating a portfolio. The Spark Your Story Intensive supports our own kind of book publication strategy. So you're going to receive guidance on submitting the work you produce in the program towards the completion of your manuscript. And the Spark Your Story Intensive isn't a workshop-based course. You get personalized one-on-one instructor feedback on every writing project you submit. You're also going to get guidance on next steps for your project via a portfolio review at the very end with me. So you're working towards this goal of producing a portfolio that Rowan, your instructor, will be looking at every week. You submit something to her, and then at the very end, you're going to collect all of this work you've produced together into a portfolio, and we're going to have a conversation about it. And I'm going to give you some next steps and some encouragement and some suggestions for the ongoing development of your project and its publication. So a major struggle that we've identified for writers of personal narrative is the feeling of overwhelm. And that is how our approach helps writers, just by breaking that book's worth of material down to one potent story at a time, and comprising a long form manuscript by writing it piece by piece. This approach will allow you to make steady progress on your project while also publishing your work simultaneously. If you're thinking to yourself, well, if my ultimate goal is to publish a book, shouldn't I just finish a big draft, my major draft, find an agent, work on revisions, and then contact a publisher with my proposal? Isn't that how it works? Our approach may seem counterintuitive if that's what you're expecting the process to be, but it can actually streamline the publication process for you when you are ready to talk to an agent or publisher with a book proposal, because you're going to be building a literary CV as you test the market with your stories and complete your manuscript. So by the time that your project is finished, you'll have some publication credits that you can mention in your query letter or your proposal, and you're going to be a little bit further ahead than people who are just expecting to finish a manuscript, hand it over to a publisher, and then just wait for them to agree to publish their book with maybe no CV, no bio, no experience. Because I've been teaching this for just almost 6 years, I can tell you that there is a growing, passionate market for the kinds of short form experimental work that you will be producing in the intensive. So readers, editors, and publishers are looking for personal stories that explore the universal themes we've all read about, written about, but in new and innovative ways. So I'd like you to just consider the high publication rate and number of award nominations of some of the writers who have been through my Spark Your Story programs, including Deanna Partridge David and Karen Zay. These are writers who had some of their early publications come out of work produced in my courses. And I get emails and even letters in the mail sometimes, Facebook messages frequently from writers who want to tell me the good news that the work they've produced in my courses have been accepted for publication. They're on long lists, short lists, finalists for awards, like Deborah Elderhorst, who won the 2019 Creative Nonfiction Collective Award, and another one of my students, Margaret Noasik, who won the 2020 Creative Nonfiction Collective Award, both for work produced in my classes. So I have a collection of writers who have been nominated for awards, and I kind of started collecting them and created this graphic a few years ago, but there are a growing number of writers that have reached out to me since I've made this to let me know their exciting news when their work that they're submitting for contests and publications are being recognized. So if you're wondering if the intensive would be a good fit for you, the program is designed for writers who are really struggling to get started, organize, and or finish a draft of a memoir, and are willing to approach their project as a collection of linked pieces. We're also interested in helping writers whose book strategy is in alignment with ours. They want to generate a portfolio of short experimental work to submit and include as part of their essay collection or long form memoir. We want Spark Your Story intensive writers to feel at ease in an online learning environment, because the program is really run through a password protected course platform. We want you to be comfortable with reading as the primary learning mode. We don't do live lectures. There are some Zoom group calls kind of peppered throughout the program, but it won't be the primary way that you access your learning materials and do the work. We also want you to feel motivated by the pace of the course and not overwhelmed by the fairly intense weekly writing deadlines. They are not lengthy. This is short form memoir, but you will be reading, digesting, learning, thinking about craft elements, encouraged to try different types of writing projects and preparing those assignments on a weekly basis. So it is an intensive pace. We also want Spark Your Story intensive writers to feel excited to explore their material in new ways. We want them to feel safe and supported and encouraged to take risks and ask questions as they grow, and to feel confident with the next steps that we suggest for them to take on their creative journey and their path to publication. So here is basically how the program is laid out. It is a 12-week program for writers who want to generate a portfolio of submission-worthy essays as they work toward the completion of their book manuscript. Writers get lifelong access to the program. So although the official dates are 12 weeks in length from beginning to end, you are going to have ongoing access to the materials you can return to. The Spark Your Story Intensive combines 2 experimental writing programs that I developed several years ago and then decided to bring together in one potent learning bundle. So the first section of the course, the first 5 or 6 weeks, are what I call outlier forms on the edges of creative nonfiction. So we do a deep dive into the flash essay, the prose poem, the lyric essay, and the hermit crab essay. Part 2 takes the boundaries, pushes the boundaries of the essay even further into the territory of structures influenced by visual art. So we will be looking at the panel essay, that's the 2-part diptych essay, the 3-part triptych, the many variations of the visual essay, and something I call the decentered or visual hermit crab essay. Some of our program design elements, we do a deep dive into story form and structure with weekly lessons, curated readings, and author Q&As. The program includes craft mini lessons, pre-writing exercises, and projects to get you writing powerful first drafts. You're going to be part of a warm and supportive community where you can connect with each other via live group calls. You're going to receive one-to-one instructor feedback to guide revision and suggest next steps for each new draft you produce. Plus, you're going to be invited to office hours for extra support, some one-on-one time with your instructor. You're going to participate in a final portfolio review with me, where you're going to get additional feedback on writing generated in the course and some suggested next steps. And we're going to celebrate your amazing work in an end of program Zoom reading. That's definitely my favorite part. Here's what you'll achieve. By the end of the 12 weeks, you'll have in-depth knowledge of the variety of forms and structures for personal storytelling. You're going to have that portfolio of new work towards the completion of your manuscript you can start submitting to literary journals. And you're going to have the knowledge, skills, and confidence to maintain momentum on your project even after the program ends. We are going to celebrate with that end of program group reading, and the portfolio review is really fun too, to have a conversation about everything that you've worked on, some feedback, some next steps, some suggestions for where your work is going, where your project is going. Often having another reader who can look at everything you've produced as a whole can lead to some insights that are really useful for the development of the next batch of stories that you want to write, and even kind of coming up with a unifying theme for your story and the direction of your book. So a little bit more about us. I came to creative nonfiction 10 years ago. At the time, I didn't feel confident calling myself a writer. It was really becoming a mom to my kids that gave me the push that I needed to prioritize my writing. It was a lyric essay course I took in 2014 that really helped unlock some of the difficult stories I had been wanting to write. And it changed everything for me as a writer. And as a future instructor of these types of stories, I really found my way in and through difficult stories by experimenting with hybrid forms like the prose poem, the visual essay, hermit crab essay, collage essay, all of these fun experimental forms that I love teaching. I found that getting playful with short experimental forms actually made the writing process easier for me, and it made my writing more creative at the same time. So working with frameworks to tell my story gave it focus. I also found at the same time that creative constraints nurtured innovation. So I was producing more interesting work and really publication worthy work. I was able to quickly generate flash length material to start submitting to publications and contests. And in 2016, I won 3 awards for my creative nonfiction. I found that my work was getting accepted in journals. I was being interviewed, invited to festivals, doing readings. My life basically changed overnight. I was finally recognized as the writer that I had hoped I could be. And that really inspired me to want to teach other writers what I had learned and kind of give them some shortcuts so that they could also achieve their goals without waiting longer than they need to. They just needed the information and knowledge and strategies to do what I did. So I launched my first online course, Creative Nonfiction Outliers, in January 2017. And to my delight, it helped kickstart the careers of a number of writers. This is one of my students, Emily James, who says, Nicole's writing programs have launched so many careers at this point, I'm calling it a movement. Now I'd like you to meet Rowan McCandless, who is the instructor who delivers the Spark Your Story Intensive. In 2017, Rowan was brand new to creative nonfiction when she signed up for my very first course, Creative Nonfiction Outliers. She felt at the time that a lack of direction and community were major initial barriers to her writing. But she also felt a lot of fear about writing into her material. She was dealing with themes like intergenerational trauma, racism, domestic abuse, mental illness, motherhood, daughterhood, love loss, the writing process. All of this stuff was all very personal and some of it quite raw and vulnerable. So Rowan's writing really was transformed as she began to embrace working with hybrid forms and started submitting her work for publication. A number of writers have told me the same thing about the kinds of short form experimental forms that we teach. There's safety in the puzzle work of writing into hard material. I think it has to do with the brain not being able to focus on solving the puzzle of how you're going to fit your material into a form and then the emotional content. It's sort of 2 different things. So this is just an example of one of the award-winning essays Rowan came up with in that very first course, CNF Outliers, that now comprises the first section of the intensive. It's called A Map of the World, and it has some interesting graphic elements, and it's going to be really fun to see. It's always fun to see the kinds of work that writers come up with when they just start to understand what's possible for their stories, when they see work like this and the kinds of readings that we share and discuss and encourage them to try. Amazing things can happen on the page. The Map of the World was crafted in my CNF Outliers course. It took Rowan 2 weeks to write it. With my encouragement, she submitted it to a contest, and it was the first of many awards that Rowan has won ever since. Since 2019, she has taught my courses on form and structure. I'm really proud to have her come back to teach the intensive. She's currently the creative nonfiction editor for Canada's longest standing, and I can say probably most respected, or one of the most respected literary journals, The Fiddlehead. And in October 2021, Rowan's first book was published, and it has been highly celebrated. It has been a finalist for the highest literary honor in Canada, the Governor General's Award, as well as a number of other honors, being on book lists. She's been interviewed on, different TV shows, news shows, different programs. Her book has been turned into an audiobook. amazing things came out of that first course that Rowan took that introduced her to creative nonfiction and what was possible for her stories. So writers, what we want you to know is if we can do this, you can too. We absolutely love witnessing the breakthroughs that happen when writers start to get playful with form and find new ways to tell their stories. You literally can write a whole book piecing your story together, one small story at a time, into a collection like Rowan did. And just wanted to share a few things that writers have said about our program. I'd attended other creative writing courses, but none which explored the innovative forms Nicole guides you through in detail. Catherine Lewis says, within a few weeks, the course content and thorough feedback unlocked my first ever hermit crab essay, which was longlisted for 2 contests several months later, my first writing award nominations. I'm infinitely grateful to Nicole for helping me finally generate publishable, contest-worthy creative nonfiction. And Diana Hope Tegenkamp says, the experimental CNF forms I explored in this course opened me up in new creative ways. As an instructor, Rowan McCandless was incredible. Alongside her knowledge of the forms, she created a safe and intimate space, which made it possible for me to tackle difficult subject matter like my father's passing. As a result, while working with Rowan, I wrote my prose poem, My Father as Rhythm in Lake Water, which placed second in the Banff Center Bliss Carmen Poetry Contest. And Hilary Fair says, the piece I wrote in Nicole's class was shortlisted for the CNFC Guelph Humber Prize. I'm so grateful for your course and to Rowan for the boost it gave my writing, especially in the fray of a year that the end of 2020 and early 2021 turned out to be. Thank you for your work and to Rowan for hers. The content in your program is very special and very cool. Just one more here from ZM Dangers. Before the Spark Your Story Intensive, I was getting stuck in so many places. Now that I can include images, the multiple form interplay leaves me with so much to work with. Not only are the assignments super creative, but I love learning about the context and background that gives rise to these outlier forms. Rowan is so supportive too. It's been invaluable to learn from a writer who is also writing about her multiracial experiences. So if all of this sounds interesting to you and you're wondering how to join us in the intensive, there are 2 enrollment periods a year currently, and we cap the number of spots at 10 so that it can remain a very small cohort, and there's more opportunity for that kind of one-to-one learning and small group dynamics. So Session 1 usually runs from February to May. The second session of every year is September to December. We accept writers into the program by application. It's a very simple process. When you join the wait list and we're getting close to opening enrollment, you will be invited to apply and just literally hit reply to the 3 questions that we ask. We just want to know about your writing and publication history. If you haven't published anything, that isn't a reason not to apply. We are always looking for writers of all levels of experience. We're wanting to know whether you are working on a memoir or essay collection and to learn a bit about the themes you're exploring, a bit about your project, and why you feel the intensive would be right for you with where you're at with your project. So I encourage you to join the wait list. As I mentioned, we will email you when we're accepting applications for the next session. The link for you to join the wait list is nicolebreit.com/intensive-waitlist. You can also always email us at info@sparkyourstory.com. We would love to hear from you and to answer any questions you have. So just want to thank you so much for tuning in, and hope you learned as much as you needed to help you decide whether this program is for you. Really look forward to hearing from you with any questions. Bye for now.